Secretary, in 2015 at the Paris Climate Conference, you said that if all industrial nations go to zero emissions, it wouldn't be enough. And then at the White House's Climate Day in January of 21, you said almost 90% of the planet's emissions come from outside the U.S. We could go to zero tomorrow and the problem isn't solved. And in April 21, you told the Washington Post that even the U.S. and China going to zero emissions tomorrow won't solve the climate's problem. Then in April of 21, you said that global net zero is not enough and that CO2 must be removed from the atmosphere. How much is the correct amount of CO2?
Let me explain to you, if I can, so you understand exactly what I said. It's close, but it's not quite exactly what I was saying.
Can you just tell me what the correct amount is? Let me tell you what I'm saying.
I'm going to tell you what the correct. Here's how it works. Because we have put, I'd forget the exact number of tons, millions of tons of CO2 and other greenhouse gases are now in the atmosphere. They're there. And every day we're adding more. And so every day the heat is going up and we have to figure out how we're going to, tame the monster here. The only way to do that is to reduce emissions on an ongoing basis to get control on the current level of emissions that we have created.
But what is then? But what
actually
is the correct,
suck,
sir? With all due respect, you've been through this before. What is the correct amount? I don't want to spend a bunch of time about a history lesson about things that people don't care about.
Well, it changes every day. I can't tell you exactly what
amount change.
Yes, it does.
So, Secretary, you probably know that for approximately 200 million years, what's the parts per million now? About 400, right? Can we agree on that?
It's over 400.
All right.
It's about
200 million years, 2,000 parts per million. Did Mother Nature get it wrong for 200 million years?
Here's the difference, Congressman. The difference is, yes, there were periods which all the scientists who deal with climate acknowledge that there have been moments on the planet, which is billions of years old, in which there were greater heat and there was greater.
Tell me the difference quickly. I've got a limited amount of time.
The difference is human beings are creating this. That's the difference.
So human beings are about 300,000 years old, but during these periods of time where it was 2,000 parts per million, life existed. As a matter of fact, we're in one of the lowest
not human beings walking around.
We're in one of the lowest periods of carbon in the atmosphere in not only recorded history, in the history of life existing on the planet. In December of 2022, you told the Washington Post we need to remove 1.6 trillion tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere via direct air capture. The cost for that is about $1,000 per ton, or $1.6 quadrillion. Now, you said you didn't know, but since 2015, since the last El Nino, about 500 billion tons have been emitted into the atmosphere. During that same period of time, 2015, if you look at the temperature graph, this is from NOAA. The temperature has gone down. Show the next slide. This is from NASA satellite data. Temperature has gone down. You want to have the American taxpayers, my constituents that are having a hard time afford their groceries, pay for a car, buy a new home, spend $1.6 quadrillion to fix a problem that A, doesn't exist, and as a matter of fact, you might be exacerbating because it's unknown. It is unknown at this time the low level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that might actually destroy life, because plant life all depends. As you know, Secretary, plant life all depends on CO2, and when we kill it, then we're done too. I yield the balance.
Congressman, let me just say that I don't agree with what you're saying out there for any number of reasons. I don't have time to go into all of them now, but I'll just tell you point blank that the difference between the periods you're looking at in terms of heat, et cetera, and human input is night and day, number one. Number two, why do you think 195 countries in the world, their prime ministers, their presidents?
Because they're grifting like you are, sir.
That's a pretty shocking statement, that you believe that all the scientists in the world are grifters, honestly.
Not all scientists agree with you, Mr. Secretary.
98% of all the scientists in the world.
Science isn't about agreement. It's not about consensus. You know that.
Sure, I'm happy the Department of Energy is out here making sure that we can all save money because we're too dumb to figure out how to do it ourselves. Dr. Richmond, as I look at this, you're looking at a gas stove rule, a dishwasher rule, a machine a washing machine rule, a clothes dryer rule, a general service lamp or light bulb rule, a refrigerator rule, and a new room air conditioner rule. And you said earlier that you do not coordinate with radical environmentalist groups, but in May, in a letter refusing to provide testimony at a hearing in this committee, DOE relied on a court-ordered consent decree initiated by radical environmentalist activist groups for the basis for not providing witnesses. If you don't coordinate, why was that the case?
So that, thank you for that question.
You don't have to thank me, ma'am, just answer, it'd be great.
So that was to apply pressure for us to give a timeline for us to actually put the rule in place, which is now January 20.
So, okay, fair enough. When is it? When must energy standards be updated per the statute?
So every 6 years, DOE is to look to see whether...
And consider them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, consider. Does that mean, does consider mean promulgate rules every 6 years?
No, it does not suggest that. What we do every 6 years is we look to see whether...
Okay, so when do you decide that it's finally time?
Every 6 years, it's
every 6 years you take a look to determine whether you like efficiency standards or not, but every 6 years you don't promulgate a rule, right? I just went through gas stove, refrigerator, air conditioner, clothes dryer, light bulb, washing machine, but every 6 years we haven't had one of them. So how come every 6 years we haven't had one if you look at them every 6 years?
Well, every 6, they're not exactly all timed for the very same year, of course.
Well, they look like they're pretty well timed right now.
Well, these 6 are certainly,
Yeah,
but we have
yeah.
60 appliances that we work with.
Yeah, and washing machines, refrigerators, gas stoves are something that are found in most people's homes, even people on the lower end of the economic spectrum. Ma'am, I don't know what kind of gas stove you have in your house, and to the gentle lady from the other side of the aisle says it's not a ban. According to my figures, 4% of current gas stove tops available in the market today meet the rule, which means 96% of them don't. And if you're not making a lot of money, you can't afford the expensive one that it probably will meet it, so you got to try and buy the other one. I'm glad the Department of Energy is saving everybody a bunch of money by forcing them to spend a bunch of money, but if you have a gas stove in your home right now, there's a gas line coming to it and probably a 110 connection. Do you know what it takes to put an electric stove in your home? You have any idea?
No, I don't, but I do.
Here, I do. You got to run a 220 line, which means you got to probably have to get an electrician, because unless you know how to do that yourself, you're playing with potentially losing your life and electrocuting yourself. And your township or your municipality is not going to let you do it. You're going to have to hire somebody to come in and drill holes in your floor and pull wire to the panel and hook that whole thing up. And how much is that going to cost? Is that included in your efficiency savings calculation? Is that whole operation included, especially for poor people who are just happy to have a gas stove?
Well, I have 2 things to say to that. First of all, we're not requiring anyone to change to an electric stove.
So when your stove dies, when your stove no longer works, and the Department of Energy has determined you can't buy one of these, you got to buy one of the expensive ones or an electric one, because that's all you can afford, and then you got to run electricity. I'm just asking, have you included that in your calculation of saving us all from ourselves?
Let me just say that we, again, are strongly in favor of consumer choice, and so the consumer...
Apparently not.
...to do, and if
Let me ask you this. DOE and EPA signed a joint memorandum on interagency communication and consultation on electric reliability in March, where both agencies agreed to consult with FERC on carrying out activities related to the reliability of the electric grid. Now, DOE's proposed regarding gas stove regulation encourages 40% of American households to switch from gas-powered to electric stoves. Did the DOE consult with FERC to ensure the rules proposed under your purview to not necessarily strain the U.S. grid?
we did not.
You didn't?
No, what I'm saying is that in our energy conservation standards program, we did not consult with FERC on what.
So does that mean the Department of Energy intends to ignore the impact of our nation's energy security for their own selfish reasoning and intent?
Well, let me go back to the fact that we don't require anyone to change from gas to electric.
Ma'am, you don't have to require them if they're not available on the market to buy. There's no requirement. You just can't get it. Thank you very much for limiting our choices